Welcome to the show, Sean. Delighted to get you here. Delighted to find you online. You're quite the social media trailblazer. You're kind of popping up everywhere now over the last 2 weeks. I feel like there's just obviously been a load of conferences, and we were all connected with the same people online. That it's about time that we got you on the show to discuss all things digital and hospitality. I always say I have a bit of a penchant for botching people's introductions on my podcast. So I'd love for you to tell us a bit about who you are, what you do, and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. My name's Sean Walchef. I own Cali Barbecue and Cali Barbecue Media in San Diego. Every time I say Cali Barbecue Media or Cali Barbecue, we've gotten laughed at. And we've been in business for 16 years. So 2008, we opened up a breakfast restaurant. We added a sports bar and essentially built a barbecue business on top of that. And in the last 7 years, we built a media company on top of our barbecue business. So the barbecue side, we're about to open up our fourth location at the San Diego Naval Exchange. We have two stadium locations. We have one ghost kitchen location. And the premise of why are we building a media company is a lie, a lie that I think has been told to all entrepreneurs and business owners. I don't know if your audience has seen the movie A Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner, but
I think everyone knows the quote.
the quote from the movie is, "If you build it, they will come." And I came to realize that if you build it, they will not come, and that no one is coming. And I think that was the greatest curse became the greatest blessing for me, in that I needed to learn how to share our story, how to use Web 2.0. We opened in 2008. The first iPhone came out on June 29th, 2007. And what I learned way before the pandemic was that the internet matters. And if I claimed my Yelp page and claimed my Google My Business, and I cared about my website, and I cared about email marketing, and I learned how to talk about my brand, eventually all of the media that I was hoping that would cover our restaurant, they actually started learning about our restaurant through Facebook, through
Yeah,
Instagram, through Google, through podcasting. And now we're at a place where, we host multiple shows. One show is called Digital Hospitality, which we've done since 2017. We host a show called Restaurant Influencers on entrepreneur.com that's reached over 30 million people in 2 years. Toast is the title sponsor of that show. And we also produce shows for other restaurant groups, hospitality brands, and
yeah,
technology companies. So, for us, we like to think that we're just getting started, even though it's 16 years in. The essence of everything that we do is that when I first started our show in 2017, nobody was listening, but I also knew that there were other business owners on earth that had access to Apple Podcast, that had access to Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, that also were trying to improve their business. That if I could find great guests that had great information, that they would get a seat at the table if they cared about improving their restaurant, if they cared about improving their technology. And here we are, on a show with you, and it's amazing for me because I get to develop deep connections with anyone that's listening. So if you're listening to
yeah.
the show, I'm weirdly available. You can find me on LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Find our
You're very
podcast.
reachable.
I'm very reachable. I stole the line from Ryan Reynolds, and he said in an entrepreneur interview that he's weirdly available, and I too am weirdly available. So I'm honored to be on the show, and hopefully the listeners and the audience, they can take something from this interview that makes them uncomfortable, because it
Yeah,
is uncomfortable telling your story. We take it for granted, as business owners. We assume that everyone knows the origin stories of our restaurant, our tech business, whatever we're building. We assume that people know, and we also assume that people don't want to hear from us. And
yeah.
I'm here to tell you that that's just a lie. People want
Ah,
they want the human connection.
it's so funny you say that because I think about that a lot as somebody. I mean, I've been in marketing in many different shapes and forms over the last 13 years or whatever it is, since like 2012, 2011. And I've like from the get go, I was like, you know, my own personal arrogance around marketing is that like to your point, you build it, they will come. And it's like most people have never heard of you. Like most people don't know who you are.
Correct.
And it's like go to the gym and thinking you can get jacked in a day by putting out a Facebook ad or putting out whichever, it
Yeah.
is so many things over a consistent amount of time. And I think like for me, one of the great things I hear about like the messages that come from TikTok, for example, like the platform, not necessarily the content, is that like it rewards consistency. But a
Yes.
platform like that is very difficult inverted commas to actually create content for. Like anybody can walk down the street and record a video and put it out there. And that's why there's so much kind of that sort of user generated content on the platform. But it's like putting in the reps, putting in the consistency,
Yep.
whether that's on your Instagram, whether that's on your Facebook, your Yelp, your website, podcast, like there's so many different ways, shapes and form factors to reach people today.
Yes.
And like I love the fact that you used the phrase like weirdly available. Like the way I just pronounced it was weird. Weirdly. Sorry, I should stop myself. But if you think about it being like weirdly available, like I mean, whether you're in a restaurant or whether you're as SDR in a tech company, like speech or reply is like the name of the game there. You know what I mean? It's like how quick are you to respond to that inbound message that comes to your business? How quick are you to kind of get the food on the table for somebody? You know what I mean? It's like the kind of concepts are so universal, but I guess you were seeing it in hospitality. I mean, actually, going like kind of jumping off here is how did you realize that you became a sort of media marketing kind of maven that other businesses could use you to help them grow their own sort of media footprint online?
I think, the premise of digital hospitality of our thesis, that's the name of our original show. It started as Behind the Smoke, but we changed it in 2019 to digital hospitality. And the premise comes from our restaurant. The premise comes from when you walk into a restaurant, you want to be greeted. You want
Who knew?
somebody to be weirdly available as a human to make you feel welcome. If you walk into a party, you want to be welcomed. You want to feel like you're supposed to be there. And if you've never been there before, you want to know what the layout of the land is. That's what being a host is. That's what making a memorable moment is. And I realized, because of our difficult location and running our restaurant, that number one, we needed to do it in real life. Like if we wanted to succeed building a barbecue business in San Diego, we better take care of the people that walk into the restaurant. Like
Yeah,
obviously. But we also were living in a place where the internet mattered and all of these different tools were available to business owners in ways that had never been available before. Before in 1970, you didn't have a Google My Business page. There was no Yelp page. You didn't have a Facebook page. You didn't even have a website. Like, you know,
yeah.
we're here now where all of these different platforms for people to find you. How good are you at responding? If you're good at responding, you set yourself apart from everybody else. If you think about all the magical moments that happen in technology, all the best apps that you use, whether it's DoorDash or Amazon or the Starbucks app, or, now even checking into your flight, like some of these apps are phenomenal. Some of these websites are phenomenal, but a majority of them are terrible. Like a majority of websites and app experiences are bad. Why are they bad? Because the communication's terrible. You don't have
Okay.
proper communication.
And if you like parlay that into sort of a viewpoint on hospitality in particular, like, are we saying that, the communication of one's business, whether you're one location or 10, 15, more often than not, there's a struggle to communicate what your business is about online? Is it like, and is this a uniquely hospitality issue as well?
I think it's a human issue.
Yeah.
As humans, we know where we stand when we have communication, when there are clear expectations. It's much easier in real life to do that. I always say that customer service is bullshit because customer service is treating someone like a human. When we
Yeah.
talk to people that are in the retail space, they say customer service, customer, I'm like, customer service is bull. Like, that's just plain stakes. Take care of somebody as a human being. That's what being a human is. Hospitality is, how do you go above and beyond? How do you start to anticipate the needs? How do you start to listen? You listen and you get information, and from that information, you create a more memorable, more magical experience. Well, if you can do that in real life, and then all of a sudden you send me a message on LinkedIn and I reply to you within 15 minutes of like, I would love to connect. I'd love to learn more. Here's a link to my Calendly, and we're on a Zoom call. Like, I can make a connection with you or anyone that's willing to reach out the same way as if you walked into my restaurant. If you walked into my
Yeah.
restaurant in San Diego, I would want you to feel welcome. Thank you for taking the time to travel from wherever you've traveled from. My job is to make sure you get the best seat, make sure you get the best brisket, enjoy the best wedding beans, take a cool photo that we want to share, take a video. Like, all of those things happen in real life. The companies that are winning are understanding that you got to do it online too. And if you
And
do it
so,
online, there's a magical exponential factor that happens.
okay, so I guess people listening to this pod will go, yeah, I mean, I'm into Instagram, I'm into social media, I'm into getting myself on Google. But why are some brands able to thrive doing that? And why are some restaurant and hospitality groups not able to thrive doing that?
It's easy. The answer is that people want quality. They have an idea of what they want their brand to be, what they want to look like, and they're scared of being their true authentic self and looking stupid and sounding stupid in the beginning.
You know, it's so fascinating you say that because I had somebody else in the podcast who's making content now pretty religiously on their LinkedIn. And I remember chatting to him about this and having the exact same thing. I was like, man, I am so proud that you're putting yourself out there and making that content. And tomorrow's content will be better than yesterday's, which will be better the next day. And you will get your pattern down. You'll get your style the more you do it. It goes back to this thing about reps.
Yeah.
Like was just putting it in and getting that. Like I remember doing my first podcast on this was with the guys from Big Chicken
Yep.
and
Josh Halpern,
Josh Alpert and Sam
Sam
Stanovich.
Stenovic. Yep.
Yeah, and like I mean, objectively, my style was so bad. Like as in how we designed the conversation, like and just the prep that went into it is so different than like kind of even what we do now. And we've done like over 100 of these now, and it's very much more like locked down now in terms of like how I approach it and how I think about it. And, in terms of the feedback we get from people, I think it's kind of very much in its sort of style and in its groove now. But we got to that point, and I always refer to it as 0 to 1. It's like, okay, like the first thing was we'd never done a podcast. I'd never recorded it myself and put it online at all, ever. But I was like, I know that this is a type of content that needs to exist. I think that there's a kind of niche for us in what we're doing to do it. And doing it once, okay, the impossible job. Doing it the
Yep.
second time was like, well, I can't be as difficult as the first one. Doing the third, doing the fourth, and building up that cadence, building up that muscle. And I think about that a lot for like hospitality businesses, like restaurants, in terms of like what it takes to kind of produce. We talk about you, I mean, you in particular are expert in this, but you talk a lot about smartphone storytelling, and it's like every single person in your restaurant has access to a way to market your business and give the impression of what that business is about. But it's like the permission unlock seems to be the determining factor why restaurants are not able to kind of get that out, or like, hospitality businesses are not able to think in their mind as much of a media company as much as they are like a restaurant company.
My media mentor, David Meltzer, he teaches me, and one of my favorite stories and lessons that he talks about is the problem that most business owners have with creating content is that they don't believe in Noah's Ark. And I remember when he told me that, I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, not Noah's Ark in a biblical sense, in an Old Testament way, but Noah's Ark in compounding interest. People don't believe in consistency. They don't believe in the principle of 2 by 2 by 2 by 2. And what he means by that is all he needs, all he cares about is making videos, making posts, making podcasts so that in a year, only 2 people love what comes out of my mouth. They believe, they connect with me on the truth. They connect with me on the frequency. They say, yes, Sean, I believe in what you're saying. And those two people, they'll go and find two people next year.
Yeah.
Most people want to know what's the ROI, what's the return on investment of me creating videos, of dumb videos, of posting a video a day on LinkedIn or on TikTok or
Yeah.
creating a podcast. The that's not the right question. It's the wrong question to ask. The question to ask is in 5 years from today, which is 2024, when we're in 2029, do you think there will be more video on the internet or less?
I mean, if that's a direct question to me as opposed to
Yeah.
rhetorical, I would say, man, absolutely. I mean, the internet is just a video machine now. That's literally it. I
Every
mean,
single platform pushes video. Why? Because we're tired of people telling us what to do. Show me. What does video do? Video unlocks who you are. It unlocks you get to see this is my studio. Here you go. Welcome. This is who I am. This is what I look like. You want to see my restaurant? Go to our TikTok page. This is behind
yeah,
the scenes of our restaurant. This is us in front of the smoker. This is us cooking our ribs. This is my pitmaster, Bernice. This is my catering manager, Steven. This is Eric, my general manager. Here's our bar. This is what we do for San Diego State and March Madness. These are all the things that we're doing in our restaurant, but that's me. I'm showing
yeah,
versus me taking a photo or going onto Canva and creating an image. Everybody's worried about AI taking over everything. And I have no problem with AI. I think AI will be phenomenal to help supplement the creative process. But what the problem is that people are going to try to replace it with the work. I just interviewed this incredible pizza restaurant. This guy's named Anthony Mangieri. He literally was voted the number one pizza restaurant in the entire world, top 50 pizzeria in 2022. Lower East Side. His name's Anthony Mangieri, and it's
okay, there
Una
you go.
Pizza Napolitana.
Yeah, I got it here.
Una Pizza Napolitana. He's open for 3 days a week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. or till they sell out. He hand makes every single pizza, and he's been doing it for 30 years. He is dedicated to the craft of being the best pizza maker that he possibly can be.
What about his digital presence?
He has an incredible Instagram presence, and he's starting to.
I,
But he was just on our show, Restaurant Influence. I literally just got off the call with him. I was so inspired by
yeah,
his obsession, especially in a world where we're so focused on scaling. We're so focused on how many restaurants can you open.
yeah.
He has one. That's all he wants is one. How he's scaling is actually in the CPG space, where he's figured out a
Ah,
way to craft his pizza to be in everybody's home.
that's awesome. Um, it's funny you say that because I literally just interviewed Ben Van Leeuwen of the Van Leeuwen ice cream just there like an
Mhm.
hour and a half ago. And it was the exact same thing where he talks about his retail stores, but CPG is like just an enormous growth area for them. I guess this is another way for like I'm finding loads of the guests that I have on the pod. There's a big push for CPG for a lot of the restaurant brands that I'm speaking to.
Yeah. Alternative
Like
revenue streams.
yeah, alternative revenue streams, and I guess like you know when what are you like? What we're here like now at the end of Q1, and it's been a barnstorm in Q1. It seems for hospitality, people are back to work. We're at pre 2020 levels now in employment in the hospitality space as a product that we sell to solve hiring, I feel like we're up the walls in terms of demand. So it just goes to show that like this is just a growing and growing, growing industry. What are your sort of like hype areas for the next say 6, 9 months for the rest of 2024? Like what are you seeing are like absolute kind of out of the ballpark sort of I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Like you were at MUFC, not MUFC, were you at MUFC last week, weren't you? And you
No,
were
no, I
what was
wasn't.
the other franchise
I was
you
at bar and restaurant show and
bar and
pizza
restaurant?
show. Yeah.
That was it. Yeah, yeah. Like what was the hype coming from those? Like you see, like for the next year, like what's the general tenor of conversation there?
I mean, for me, the hype hasn't changed since, how we started this show. I opened in 2008 in a bad location and I believed in the internet and like the internet isn't going anywhere. And when I
Yeah,
think of where are people going? It's understand simplifying what are we focused on. We focus at Cali Barbecue Media on 4 C's: content, commerce, communication, and community. Content, commerce, communication, and community. Those 4 things are everything to us. Those 4 things live and breathe inside of every single person's smartphone that walks into our restaurant. How do we make it easier to buy barbecue? How do we build a community around barbecue? How do we communicate the hospitality that we have through barbecue? And how do we share stories about barbecue? And for us, it's not just about barbecue. We've learned
Yeah.
the craft of telling the story of our barbecue. Now we are teaching other brands, other restaurants, other publicly traded companies how to tell stories on the internet. You know, I always say, be the show, not the commercial.
Yeah, I love that line. But like, if somebody, I'm totally gonna steal that,
But
but I'm definitely the
you
commercial.
should.
But like,
Show me,
but I
don't
think
tell. Show me, don't tell me. Show me,
totally.
don't tell me.
But why? Because you've been doing this longer than I now, in terms of like creating content. I've been far more on growth and other kind of things, and like making content production, and not really been much of a producer myself. In my career, why are why are restaurants, hospitality groups slow to embrace digital storytelling? Like, if
Easy.
they have like marketing departments, they have marketing folks that have been in this, how are we at a point? And because it blows my mind, because when I see a brand like Dave's Hot Chicken, for example,
Yep.
that has like blown up because social media, they
Yep.
just knocked it out of the park. That the inspo has not like fed to other brands. Like what is it? Because you're thriving in this now because your doorbell's ringing, or your digital doorbell. Like, I'm not knocking here. Your digital
Yeah.
doorbell has been rung constantly for people like, help us get to this point. But like, I'm trying to understand like why. Like, like, what are you hearing from people why they're struggling to make it happen?
The answer is easy. It's a human answer. People would rather be dead in a coffin than speak and give a eulogy. People have a fear of public
Yeah.
speaking. And what is more public than turning a video on yourself and producing a video about who you are, what you believe, what you're building, your hopes, your failures? It's public speaking. We see the numbers and we're like, oh, only 100 people saw this Instagram post. You put 100 real people in front of you on a stage, people will clam up. Give them a microphone, say, tell me a story. 60 seconds, tell me a story. People don't know what to say. They're worried about what's going to come out of their mouth. And the only way to get over that, every public speaker was terrible in the beginning. Every person on camera was terrible in the beginning. Every podcaster was terrible on the microphone.
So it's just like putting the reps in. I mean, it sounds so obvious, but when I see like great brands, like great food brands, great restaurants,
Yep.
and I'm like, oh my God, like their social sucks. It just annoys me on like a cellular level.
So
Because
does
I'm
it. Me
like,
too.
it's just like, it ain't hard, guys.
Yeah.
Like, and the general tenor of this podcast is like typically about leadership and culture. That tends to be like what I talk about all the time. And when people talk about culture, it stems from the top. You know what I mean? And what I feel about content, especially for like, and it could be any organization, is that like if the top isn't like socially inclined or like digitally native, that it's kind of like content, like this are buzzy buzzwords, but like content forward, so to speak, that type of permission gets tighter and tighter and tighter as it gets down to the person who's responsible for it. And
That's
so
the
by the
problem.
time, and that's the problem. I mean, there's like
It's
a
the pro
tightening of
the
that.
the amount of marketers that and that I know that are literally paid 6 figures, big salaries that have never posted themselves on LinkedIn. They've never created an
Yes,
Instagram reel. They've never made a TikTok video. Yet they're responsible for digital marketing. That's scary.
totally.
They're
It
responsible for
is.
a brand. They're responsible for a brand that has tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of customers, or thousands of employees, hundreds of employees, 10 employees, 5 employees. Like that, this thing removed all the permissions. Like I don't need a PR firm to go and get media. I literally
Yeah,
am my own
and
PR firm. I literally created my own media company because of the internet, because of all of these tools that we have. And because of that, it's a very scary place for a lot of people that have built significant businesses the old way.
if we say old way, in terms of new way, then like when you think about new way now, like what is the evolution of this new way? Like how is like what rest like how do I describe this? Like I'm trying to think, like an answer to you is like, you know, who's doing it so well that it almost like if you were in a pitch for say some large couple hundred location business that didn't really have much of a social footprint, or if it did, it was pretty negative chit chat online. How like what would be your sort of analog brands that you would say, okay, like these are brands that we actually have to indicate or highlight that you have a right to play in this space as well? Because I think like having a right to like for somebody who's like seasoned exec that's like 40 years at like some large restaurant group and they're the CEO of some turnaround brand that they know is perfect for Gen Z. Like they think they know they need to create social, but like how do they go about thinking that, or how would you like explain to like somebody that like what they need to do to really manifest change for that sort of turnaround business?
Change happens if you're willing to be uncomfortable. And most people are unwilling to be uncomfortable. The people that I respect, I admire, that I put on my shows are
Yeah,
all entrepreneurs and disruptors, knowing that, even Anthony Mangieri, who we're talking about, that man hasn't changed. But if you really interview him every single day, he wants to make a better pizza than the day before. Like he is obsessed
yeah,
with being uncomfortable and it's not good enough. The principle of like every single day we're getting 1% better. Like that
yeah,
Mamba mentality, the thing that my grandfather taught me of like, you stay curious, you get involved, you ask for help, and you're never satisfied. Rest at the end, ignore the noise, enjoy the journey and do better. The problem that I see and the problem that I've faced is that a lot of the time I used to try to convince people that the world wasn't flat, that the internet matters.
yeah,
I can't spend my time trying to convince an executive that they need to have a YouTube page, that Instagram is important, that video is important, that they should have their own podcast, that they shouldn't be spending tens of thousands of dollars with a PR firm that gets them in a magazine that nobody reads. Like it's not worth my time. There's too many people out there that are asking for help, that are willing and able, that understand the power of all the things that you and I are talking about. Why not go and help them? Why not change my message and
man.
just help them?
You know what's amazing you say that? About 3 weeks ago, I was on Instagram Sunday night and I was scrolling and I saw this video, and it was about it stopped me in my tracks. It said Restaurant Armageddon in Miami. And the headline alone, I was like, whoa, 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 I gotta stop and have a
Yeah.
look at this. And the content was so good. I DM'd him. His name is Felix Bendersky. He's a commercial real estate broker in hospitality in Miami, and I actually had him on the pod to like explain that take. And I was like, the freedom of being able to build a connection with somebody over like one video or one post that
Yeah.
helps me create content that's super valuable. My first commercial real estate broker on the pod. I wouldn't have had anybody else that had
Yeah.
that kind of level of insight into like landlords and grease traps. I didn't know the first thing about grease traps. Now I do. And I think about that a lot in terms of like, that wasn't so much a light bulb moment for me as much as it was, okay, here's a reaffirmation of how bloody valuable the internet is to creating content that benefits everyone involved in it. And here I am with you now after we connected And again, it's great content that the two of us have very similar audiences that will benefit from this conversation. I say that humbly and I say that fingers crossed, but I would hope that the content kind of resonates. And I'm like, this is not hard to produce. Like here we are saying
No.
this. Like, I mean, we're on a Zoom for anybody asking,
Yeah.
like wondering like how we're putting this magic together. Like we're on a Zoom. I've got AirPods in my ear. You know what I mean? You've got the professional Rode mic in front of your mouth, but like, you know what I mean? In the sense, like, it doesn't take much to kind of create this content. And I think that's always for me the message to anybody I ever speak to. Like, I refer to the podcast as like our Thanksgiving turkey. And somebody asked me, they're like, why do you refer to it that way? And I go, well, what do you do the day after Thanksgiving? You create sandwiches. And so for me, the distribution is the sandwiches. When it gets on YouTube Shorts, it gets on Reels, it gets on TikTok, it's
Yep.
on a couple of videos on you on LinkedIn, and it's on our blog, and it's on our website as a video. And I'm like, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple. And I'm like, all of a sudden, there's 12 different places that you can distribute that one piece of content.
Correct.
And that's one clip from that piece of content, not to mention the other clips that you can pull. And I mean, like, like, I mean, we have to learn how to get to this point. But at the same time, we zero to one it. Like, as in, we didn't really invest much. We leaned into friends and family, like you obviously did for your
Yep.
first episodes, you know, who can make introductions to this person. And then all of a sudden, it becomes this self referential kind of thing. And you did make a good point earlier. We talked about, say, the number of likes in a video or the number of views in a video. Like, I barely even look at that, frankly. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you think it'd be murderous for a marketer to say that. But I'm like, look, the audience is kind of niche. If I get a video that sends me over the top, amazing.
Yeah.
But like every piece of content will resonate with somebody else for some other different kind of reason. But I want to be the person to make that content. You know, like that's how I think about it, you know?
I mean, I recently posted a video that Stover, my producer, I actually met him because he was doing a barbecue podcast both when we both started our shows. So that was back in 2017, and I got asked to go speak at the National Barbecue Association in Fort Worth,
Nice.
Texas. I recruited other podcasters to come. So it was Stover, he had the Best Barbecue Show. I recruited Greg Rempe, who's a Barbecue Central show. We went to the conference. We created podcasts at the conference, and I also spoke. That was the first time that I was speaking about podcasting, about turning your barbecue business into a media business. This is 2017. So I posted this recently on Threads. Looking back at the video, I'm not good. I believe in what I'm saying, but not with the
Yeah.
conviction that I'm telling you right now. But the message has remained the same. The message is that you're not alone. If you're listening to this conversation, you are not alone and you're part of a rising tide. Like the more that you realize people around you, whether you have 10,000 followers on LinkedIn or you have 100 or you have 10, those 10 people are waiting to hear from you. And in fact, the less people that you have on LinkedIn, the more that LinkedIn will push your content out to other people because they want to encourage you to use the platform. Like who you are and what
Yep.
you do matters. And the problem that most people have is that they're worried about my friends and my family going to think of like, oh, who do you think you are? Alex thinks he's an influencer. Look at Alex posting on TikTok. Like, who do you think you are? Like, who gives a shit? Who cares what they think? It doesn't
Finally. Thank
matter.
you.
It
Yes.
doesn't matter what they think. Like
I'm
what
like,
matters is that I got to meet Alex because I was willing to do the work. I get to go on shows like this all the time. My calendar is booked for months out of, shows that I have, people that I'm consulting with, brands that want to launch shows, all because I've been willing to put in the work. But I put in the work and I invested in this media company, this crazy idea for 5 years before I got our first brand deal.
yeah.
Like that's a long time. Imagine if I was working at a big corporate company and I came to them in 2017, I said, I've got this crazy idea. Let's start a media division in our marketing department. Let's start podcasting. Allocate, I don't know, let's call it $10,000 for me to get the equipment that I need and the guests that I want and the travel cost and the this, that, the other. Okay, year one, $10,000. Okay, Sean, how many people listen to the show? I don't know, 75 people. Year two, I need another $10,000. How many people listen to the show? I don't know, maybe 100 people. Like year three, where's the return on this investment? Year four, where's the return on this? Like there was no return on the investment. What is the investment? The investment is in myself, of knowing that the internet is going nowhere, and being able to communicate on the internet and to create content and tell stories on the internet is invaluable.
Man, you've hit on it so well. Like I think about this all the time, like what is the point of marketing if everything is looked at under the lens of performance marketing?
Yes.
Like I think of Facebook as a Facebook ad. I spend X, I get Y. And I really, it has been a enormous bugbear of mine for an extraordinarily long time because I think like, at the end of the day, you're like building a brand, you're building credibility, you're building authority in a space for you around barbecue and around hospitality in general, and this sort of like digital first smartphone storytelling sort of area that you find yourself in, and communicating that over and over again. Like when people talk about ROI, like what, like, it blows my mind because it's like, what do you expect like a marketer to do? Okay, if you do like you get like say you make 10 videos and each get 1,000 views. Okay, they get 10,000 views. Okay, and then you do 10 LinkedIn posts that get 100 likes. Do you know what I mean? So then there's another 1,000 likes or something on your post
Mhm.
there. And it's like, yeah, how many sales do we get from that? And it's like, man, our content's resonating with
Yeah,
the right people. And they will buy when they are ready to buy.
correct.
But if we're doing this weekly, like Verizon isn't doing this weekly.
I know.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's so hard to articulate this sort of dark social value. Do
Yep.
you know what I mean? Like, because I feel like everyone thinks that it's about capturing lightning in a bottle. And I honestly, if you do capture lightning in a bottle, good for you. To whoever is the person that gets the viral video, more power to you. But like, it ain't about the lightning in a bottle. It's about the consistent reps. If you're getting videos and you're putting them out, they're getting 20, 50 likes, they're getting 20, 50 views. It doesn't really matter because it's a cumulative effect.
Yep.
And to your point, like the internet is here forever. Like all that content searchable. Anybody searching for like
But
Sean Walchef, Alex
what do
Mack,
you
it's
think
there.
Chat GPT, what information is Chat GPT pulling?
Exactly.
It's pulling everything that I've
Exactly.
been pumping out.
Exactly.
Like
And
if you
hopefully,
have no
hopefully get a
content on
royalty.
the internet, it's not going to pull your name up. Trust me.
Yeah. And it blows my mind because like to your point about ROI, and I do think it's a really important message, especially for people in hospitality that are even more concerned
Yeah.
about margins and ROI, which is like, look at great brands that have great digital presences
Yeah.
and think in their head for a second, are they calculating ROI off of their Instagram?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Correct.
It's just very unlikely. Because if they're doing it well, they're very happy with it and they're like, fair game, go for it. Then you have like yourself with like a couple of pictures of your own food, not you personally, but like
Yeah.
you're some random restaurant guy. And you're like, oh, do I invest in this in an ROI? Man, just get posted.
Yep.
Like, just getting real. Like, literally getting real with reels. It's like, just get out there and make it, 5 views, 10 views, might get a lucky view, and it's just like building that muscle. I just am like, it blows my mind. It's funny, like on your side of the fence here, because it's like you're also like selling the service to people. And I'm like, I used to be in an agency back in the day, and gladly no more.
Gladly.
And and yeah, I mean, stories I can tell. But like, what's funny is like, you know, dealing like people will pay for your opinion to hear you present that opinion, and then not execute on the concepts, the ideas that you literally put on a plate. You know what I mean? Which like, why? It's the inertia. I guess I'm really hammering this home. The inertia is just like mind blowing to me because it's so easy to start.
So my grandfather, he was born in Bulgaria. He was born to be a farm boy. He ended up studying enough that he skipped grades. He read every single book in his village. He had to go walk to other villages to read more books, but he lived this incredible life. And what he taught me was to stay curious, to get involved, and to ask for help. Curiosity will bring you to a book. Curiosity will bring you to a conference. Curiosity will bring you to a podcast. Listening and not doing the uncomfortable action gets you nowhere. I remember being a boy and coming back home from school because he raised me. I never met my father. And he would always say, Sean, did you sit in front of the class? So what are you talking about, Grandpa? No, I didn't sit in front of the class. I sit in the back with my buddies where all the cool kids are. And he would always ask me, Sean, are you sitting in front of the class? Did you ask the question? If you don't raise your hand, if you don't ask the question, if you don't do the action, you're going to be like the rest of the class. The people
Yeah.
that always win are the ones that are willing to do the work. They're willing to take the information and actually put it into action. Listening to this show, saying, yes, I need to start posting video on LinkedIn, and actually taking your smartphone out of your pocket, pressing pause, and then going, okay, pause this podcast. I'm going to take my video out and I'm going to tell my camera, why am I building what I'm building? And I'm going to post it.
It's totally.
But then I'm going to do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it the day after that. And I'm going to do it for 100 days. If you don't get in your head that this is an infinite game, what game are we playing?
Totally, man.
Simon Sinek wrote the book, The Infinite Game. It's a phenomenal book because all of business, we think in wins and losses, and business is an infinite game. Storytelling is an infinite game. I need to get better every single day at being a better storyteller. Audio, video, words, images.
Yeah. Like, and that's the thing is and I think boiling that back down, it's like all of this is very simple for somebody to hear. And I'm like, there's no reason for anybody not to. If you think the audio, the visual, what were the four you said there? Like, for example,
audio, video, words, and then images.
So like 4 very simple components here, okay? Like nothing stopping you with video.
I'll do one better for you. Video gets you words because you can transcribe the video. Video you can take a screenshot of, which will give you a photo, and video has audio. So video answers all of the storytelling.
Thank you. It's the Thanksgiving turkey.
That's it. Video gives you everything that you need.
And honestly, like it's not for me to say that we have found the way, but there is certainly a way to get yourself online. And if I was like a restaurant leader, which is what I hope is the person who listens to our podcast. I mean, they're the only people we have on, so I guess that they are. Like, my real kind of thing, like imploration, if that's even a word, is like, just get after it. Like, just get out there and make the content. Just record yourself. Like, the no fear, the no shame. People have such short memories. Like, you're talking about like, oh, all my friends and family. Oh, you think you're an influencer? Like, I had to laugh because somebody made a comment about one of my videos recently. And I had one of my buddies, like, texted me, and I was like, lol, whatever, cool. Like I said, I've now got 100 of these. I've spoken to CEOs of Dave's Hot Chicken, Big Chicken, Good Berries Creamery. I've had execs from DRG, and you name it under the sun. I've had, like, all the same influencers, all the same kind of famous people that you've had in your show. All because what? I sent them an email, I sent them a LinkedIn message, and asked them to come on and record a bit of content. I think this is a great way to show off landed sort of thought leadership or authority in the space. Like, we're a startup. Do you know what I mean? Like, as in, like, we're only a couple of years in existence, and like, it's a church and state thing. Like, I don't try and shill what we do on the podcast. If people want to check us out more, I'm like, no, like, the purpose here is just to elevate the conversation in hospitality. And I think that's exactly what we're doing here. I actually, this is probably the most engaged. I don't want to say that I haven't been engaged in any of the other episodes I've been in, but I mean more like, because this is very much my wheelhouse. When I'm talking about P&Ls, I'm like, oh, tell me more.
Tell me more. Tell me more about your inventory management. Yeah, please. Yeah,
exactly. Whereas this like is an area that I'm like super passionate about myself anyway, because I guess since I've done the podcast, it's been a very big unlock for me. Where I always used to think that like marketing is very simple. You know what I mean? Like, You do something and you expect an outcome, and that's all you kind of want to do, and you just want to see what that outcome is. Whereas with something like the pod, you kind of have to think differently because there's going to be barely any audience for the beginning, and you got to build up a type of audience, and that this thing takes time, but you're acknowledging the amount of time it's going to take. Like, I don't expect us to be over the top anytime soon. You know what I mean? But like every day a new door opens, somebody else wants to talk, somebody else might refer somebody to me, somebody else might pop up on my Twitter, or something. I mean, I feel like the Twitter inbound feed on the For You has
Yeah.
like been like, God, people hate the For You page of Twitter. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting all these franchise guys. I'm getting all these, like, most of them are undoxable, like the
Yep.
QSR guy and the Wolf of Franchises. I'm like,
Yep.
whoever you are, come on my show.
For
But
sure.
you know what I mean? Like, these guys are coming into my orbit where I haven't seen. Instagram Reels is bringing guys in commercial real estate into my life that I never would
Yep.
have seen. And I'm like, okay, my content can do the same,
Correct.
like, and I really would hope that people listening to this is like, yeah, your content can go much further than you think it can. You know what I mean? Like, it'll find its way. And like that for me is like what I'm delighted to have had you on this podcast, to like chat this. I mean, it's been, honestly, I'm like buzzing after this. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, it's great
So
to meet a kindred spirit.
anybody that's listening to this, I have an orange tree theory. And that orange tree theory is the problem that all restaurants, all entrepreneurs, all business owners, all leaders have is that we overthink the stories that matter and we don't share the ones that are important. So the orange tree at Cali Barbecue was originally planted back in 1994 by my grandfather, who's Bulgarian, and my uncle, another Bulgarian. They love trees. They love fruit trees. It was very important for them to plant a tree at our restaurant. They planted it at the restaurant. They built a water fountain, huge, beautiful. My grandfather loved water features. Built a water fountain next to the orange tree. Fast forward 2008 is when Corey, my business partner, one of my best friends from school, we opened up the restaurant. The orange tree is still there. It's producing fruit. The water fountain is still there. We start doing sports bar marketing. We have these huge fight night parties. We have NFL Sunday. During one of those NFL Sundays, the Chargers are playing the Raiders, and two fans are too drunk. They start
Yeah.
fighting in the restaurant. They take the fight outside of the restaurant into the fountain. They break my grandfather's fountain. I was devastated, very upset. My grandfather had passed away by that time. My
Yeah.
wife, who is also a Bulgarian, knew how much that fountain meant to me. We rebuilt the fountain. So we rebuilt a different fountain next to the orange tree. Fast forward to COVID, we decided to go all in on making barbecue. We added smokers. We removed the back patio. We actually removed the fountain that we built. And while we were going through construction, myself, my wife, my general manager, Gene, our pit master, our contractor, Howard, we were all there saying, there's no way that we can keep this orange tree because it's blocking the smokers to the restaurant.
Yeah.
We won't be able to bring meats in. We won't be able to get meats out. We have to remove the orange tree. My wife, she said, there's no fucking way we're removing the orange tree. That's your grandfather's orange tree. We will not remove that orange tree. And guess what? We built the smokehouse around the orange tree. The orange tree is at our restaurant. It is a story that I have started telling because it's a story that talks about family. It's beyond the barbecue business. It's beyond everything. It goes back to the roots of my Bulgarian grandfather, the person that raised me. It goes to the roots of who my wife is. Every single person that's listening to the show has an orange tree story. There's something that you take for granted. There's something that is deeply rooted in who you are, what you believe, your family story, your business story. And those are the stories that we need to tell on social media.
Oh, I'm like, that's I'm like, whoa, okay, that's like quite a story, man.
Now you got to come see the orange tree.
Yeah, I gotta. Yeah, I was gonna say, did you do anything with the bricks from the fountain? Did they get turned into dust, or
No, they're
like a
dust to
fireplace
dust.
now?
Yeah, there's no
Dust
there's
to
no
dust.
fountain left.
No fountain left, but the orange tree is still there, man. That's pretty cool. And so, how did it affect the smoker? Is it kind of like
It's
just a
just
redesign?
it's yeah, it's we redesigned it and it's right there. It's I mean the
Good.
craziest thing is I have pictures, I have videos of the orange tree standing while in construction. Um,
That's
but
awesome, man.
there's things that we take for granted every single day. You know, at you talk about Thanksgiving, every single person, if you think about Thanksgiving, if you think about Christmas, if you think about family holidays, we all celebrate these days, but the people around the table change. You know,
Yeah.
as we grow, people will no longer be there. New people will come to the table, and it's our job to tell the stories of the people that are at the table this Thanksgiving. And most people don't do that. We have everything, every tool possible to record video of the people that we love and the stories that we care about. And most of the time, it's too late.
That is very true. I mean, I'm thousands of miles away from my family, and I have sisters in Australia, and my brother lives in a place called Malta in the south of Italy. Like we're all very spread out. So you're dead right. Like I mean, it's like a once a year, maybe once every 2 years. I'm even we're all in person as my family. So yeah, although I will say that my our WhatsApp feed is now full of baby pictures. So I guess
That's
on one level we're getting nourished elsewhere.
yes,
Like they're sick of seeing me, and now we have baby pictures.
that's great.
Um, but Sean, I mean, we're kind of like we're a bit over scheduled time here now for you, so like I feel like that's been a kind of nice little way to kind of wrap it up. I usually ask people like the last thing is like a bit of a word of advice, but I feel like this podcast has been literally we've been like dousing advice all over anyone who's listening about social media. But is there anything like what would you tell somebody who is like an exec in a restaurant today, or exec in a franchise group, or exec in like a holding group, like about social media? Like, what advice would you give as one parting gift or shot?
I will repeat the advice that my grandfather taught me that we say on every show, that I say on every stage. It's so simple yet so profound, and it's to stay curious, to get involved, and to ask for help. I think executives, leaders, owners, founders, our greatest strength is our greatest weakness, is in that hospitality we give back to everybody, but very rarely do we ask for help. And when it comes to social media, there is somebody that you could reach out to me, you could reach out to Alex. Like there are so many people that are abundant with their time, with their resources, what they've learned. Like, I don't want anyone to have to wait 5 years to get their first podcast brand deal. Like I did that. Like,
Yeah,
why do my friends that all have shows, why do they need to wait that long to go and reach out? They don't. Why do they need to ask for pennies? They don't. What they do is valuable. This stuff is hard to do. It's hard to do consistently. And the better your show is, the more people and audience that you have, reach out, ask for help. And as always, I'm weirdly available. It's at Sean P. Walchef, ShawnPWalchef. Instagram's probably the place that I'm at most. Instagram and LinkedIn, but I'm also on TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, all the places. You can find me anywhere and everywhere.
weirdly available.
Weirdly available. Yep.
Well, Sean, man, like, thanks so much, for responding to my message in the first place, being
Of
weirdly
course.
available, and having this great chat. I'm buzzing. I'm buzzing. So thanks so much for coming on, man.
Appreciate you, Alex, and look forward to meeting you in person one day.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll see you in San
All right.
Diego for some barbecue.
See you. See you in San Diego. I don't have the power to like stop this recording, so I guess like we're stopped now. But
We're good.
all right, man. You're an absolute jet. That was so good. Yeah. I mean, I'm always happy to share notes as well. To that exact point, like if you
Cool.
any like, I mean, running the landed like marketing, go to market here. I have too much fucking insight. I mean,
Yeah.
this for part of recorded, but like too much insight into like restaurants and people and them and trying to figure out how to market to them and all that kind of shit. But at the same time, I'm like, always on the lookout for like a new edge. You know what I mean? Like
How
there's
many
always
how big
something.
is the company? How big is Scott Landed?
We're like over 500 customers now.
How many
Like
employees?
there's like I think we're like 48 now.
Okay.
48,
Sweet.
49. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. And we did our seed 2 years ago, 10 million. And
Sweet.
then Yeah, we were operational break even more or less when like I joined in June 2020. So I can't believe it's almost like 2 years already. And I know that we got two term sheets at Christmas that valued it very highly. And I'm like,
Sweet.
whoa, okay, cool. But Vivian, a prodigious founder, like prodigious, like Asian American, first gen, female founder. There's not that many of them in hospitality, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And she is a machine. And I had no interest in kind of coming into hospitality or into it. Like a recruitment SaaS was not something that I was kind of into. Like when I met her, you know what I mean? Like I was like, a friend of mine was like, oh, you should meet this girl. She's got this company. And I was like, oh, I'm kind of more into the fintechy kind of things. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like that was where I was coming from. And I met her and I was like, all right, I'm gonna join your company. Because if
Awesome.
this company fails, it won't be for lack of effort from her. Do you
That's
know what I
awesome.
mean? Like that's what you want from somebody. Like very clear, very like determined, operationally fucking off the charts. Like problem in CS, she'll dive straight in. Problem in ops, she'll dive straight in. Problem in eng, like she's got it down. And so yeah, so the company's been like growing, growing, growing. You know, like just signed up. Christmas we signed Red Robin as like preferred hiring partner, which was key
Sweet.
for us. And that's how I had your man Mark Simpson, who was our chief people officer on the podcast as well at that time.
Awesome.
Um, and yeah, like we're like, I mean, Days Hot Chicken, like we work with like Big Chicken. That's how I was able to get those guys on. And really kind of like it's really growing. And I feel like I sit in all the sales calls. I sit in and like on maybe not all of them, but I sit in and quite a lot of them. And listen to a lot of the gong calls, and I'm like, we were talking earlier about like, you know, the product is kind of like it, you know what I mean? Like you could market yourself, but if the product, like if you're a restaurant and your food sucked, doesn't matter how fun your marketing is going to be.
Yeah.
Like they're just like, do you know what I mean? Like word
Something's
gets out about the
broken.
product
Yep.
too. You know what I mean? And it's the same with this here. Like, I mean, I feel like we've definitely got a product market fit in it. And, you know, there's been certain external validations. Like we went to Mertech last year and won their startup alley, which is key. And so like that actually did help. The whole Mertech rest of it didn't really help. Like the whole network was fine, I guess. Like they were onto me recently, and I was like, "What value did we get from this? For
Yeah.
paying for this?" You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I was like, "What?" Because I'm not big into. You made a really good point about paying for PR. Like Vivian had a PR agency when I started, and I was like, "Vivian, like, can I just give one word of advice immediately?" And she's like, I know this is like my first week, but I'm like, I
Yeah.
have no interest in any of this kind of PR. She's
None
like, "What
of
do you
it.
mean?" And I go, "PR newswire or putting someone on the
It's
wire for
all
two
bullshit.
grand."
It's all
Paying
bullshit.
six grand a month
What
for
you
two
do is
girls.
so much more valuable.
Yeah, it's just like, and that's the thing. I didn't have to get any permission from her for any of that kind of shit. That's what I enjoy working for her. Do you know what I mean? I was like, this is what we're gonna do. Like, hopefully there's payoff. You know, I had Larry Linen, who's the HOA COO, absolute legend, like Hooters and Hoot Wings on the podcast. And I'm like, oh, if that guy fucking closed, that would be awesome. But
Yeah.
I want to keep church and state separate because I don't want to be harassing these guys I've had on the pod. Do
For
you know, I've
sure.
got that urge or that temptation. But I'm like, no, I've got salespeople for that. That is their
Yep.
job. If
Let
this
them
guy
do their
reaches
job.
out, let them do their job. But I'm like, fuck yeah, if like, you know, like Kelly Valad from Denny's. Do you know how I scale it? Here's a fun thing here. So back in November, I was like, okay, one thing we're not doing is outbound email for prospecting businesses. I was like, we're not doing it. And every email I get is complete fucking bullshit. Like
Yep.
everyone, it is written by an AI, and I swear to God, I'm embarrassed for the person sending it. I'm
Yep.
embarrassed for the company that's sending it.
Yep.
And I was like, you know what? Like I've heard of this tool called Clay that helps like stitch together like all different pieces of information and then pipe that as an API basically into everything. So I was like, well, we're going to build a couple of inboxes cold today. But what if we ran an experiment? Okay, swear to God, this is true. What if we ran an experiment where instead of putting a sales message, I just invited people onto our podcast? I've got like 12 episodes from people I've
Yep.
done already. So I guess there's a type of credibility there. When I say that campaign was so successful, Sean, that I had to pause it after a week because so many people said yes, they
Yeah.
wanted to be on a podcast.
Of
Then I was
course.
like, I can't even breathe in December. And then I turned it back on again after Christmas. Everyone was back on again. I've done like over 100 now, and there was probably about 200 and something people, maybe 250 people. have been like, I want to come on, or we need to figure out a time to come on. But I'm laughing because I'm in all these Slack groups for different kind of marketing folks,
Mhm.
and one of them was like, I can't figure out how to get people to come on my webinar. And I just commented under it and I go, just call it a podcast. And all these people like the comment because I'm like, people
It's
want to
so
come
the
on and share
webinar.
their story.
I am blown away that companies do like they do webinars and they don't repurpose. Like, who the fuck wants to get on a webinar? Like, let people watch it on demand. Like, you can do a live podcast. Like, do whatever you want to do. It's just
Yeah. I
nuts.
did do the I used to do the podcast as live, but I felt the operational burden of the fucking execs was so annoying. Like the amount of times, oh, actually, can I do it at 12? Can I do it at 1?
Yeah,
And I'm like, okay, I guess you're CEO of XYZ. But now it's like I just get them on as fast as possible. If somebody says, yeah, I'm like, how can I schedule you for
yep,
yesterday? Do you know
yep,
what I mean? And it's like, away we go, away we go. Like the content's so evergreen.
yeah.
Like what we
It's
talked about today is going to be valid
yep,
forever.
yep,
Like pull your finger out of your ass, stop being embarrassed, and
yep.
go fucking record yourself online. Like there's not much to it. Do you know what I mean? And like, yeah, I mean, I'm delighted I met you, man. Honestly, like I'm
Of
buzzing. I
course.
think you're an absolute legend. I think the shit you're doing, it's so fucking cool, and it actually inspires me. Do you know what I mean? Like genuinely, not that I would say I'm so arrogant that I
No, I
cannot be inspired. No, no, it's like literally you're coming at it from all angles, doing the Thanksgiving turkey that I think about. Like you're doing what you're executing on a level that's like above me, and I think that's fucking badass as fuck.
well, I
Forgive
hope
all my
you,
bad
I
language.
no, I hope you keep in touch. Like I said, I've got a lot of friends in the new media space, and like I try not to call it a podcast. The work that we do, I call it a show because
Yeah,
people, when you say podcast, people just don't understand the internet. It's like it's a fucking show, okay? Like, you can listen to it as a podcast, you can watch it as a YouTube video, you can watch it as an Instagram reel. Like, we're
yeah.
gonna be fucking anywhere and everywhere. Like, you can read the fucking article that we write about it, but whatever it is, it's a show. And by saying it's a
Did
show,
you
it's bigger than a podcast.
Did you ever run into an issue with the name? And I say that only because we started calling ours fast casual. And then lots of hotel people are emailing us back. They're
Oh,
like,
really?
our PR team doesn't think it's appropriate for us to be on a fast casual podcast. So then I just created a podcast called Late Checkout, which does the exact same thing. It's all hotel people get pushed into late checkout and
That's
restaurant people
great.
go on fast casual. Yeah. Or fine dining people also go into late checkout because I had to find it. Like a fine dining group in Bay Area. We're like, yeah, like we're a bit above this. I'm like, fuck off, man. Like,
Yeah,
come on.
fuck off
It's
is
a fucking
right.
piece of content. It's a fucking
Yeah.
piece of content. Um, but yeah, man, I gotta let you go because I appreciate
You
I've
got it, man.
taken
Of
way a lot of your time. But
course,
you're an absolute legend. Thank you so much for
of
this.
course, man.